Hey everybody, it's me, Undead Viking. I am here to talk to you about a game that has a cool name. It's called Bomarzo, and I apologize, I don't have a box to show you because I didn't get sent a box. But this is a really, really cool game, and I'm going to probably butcher how to pronounce the name of the publisher, but Geochix, or Geochix. They're an Italian board game company. They created a really, really good a game called Historia that I've enjoyed a great deal, and some other ones as well. I can't remember all of them, but that's the one most recently that they published that I've actually enjoyed my plays of. And I mentioned that in a podcast about the game, and they must have heard that or something, and they contacted me and they asked me if I'd take a look at this one. This is a game that they've got coming out soon, and I said, yeah, sure, go ahead and send it to me. And I was very pleasantly surprised with this one. The Euro genre for me lately has been kind of hit and miss for me. And frankly, I've had a lot of misses lately. I enjoy games that take the already existing versions of resource collection and set collection and hand management and deck building and all that stuff. That those mechanisms that are very ingrained in the Euro game culture, and I don't want them to retread on the old stuff that's already there. I want them to take those ideas that exist and kind of twist them in certain ways to make them interesting for me. And I was a little tentative at first, and after I got the rule set and I read it, I thought this game definitely had some possibilities, and I was excited about giving it a try and springing it on my group, and I have done so, and we've played it a few times now, and we've enjoyed the high level of decision making. And I play with a group that is very AP prone and analysis paralysis prone, but we have a very good patience level, so but it hasn't been bad, and we've really enjoyed the puzzle that this game has presented to us as far as crafting an engine that will allow us to create points to win the game. So hopefully I haven't been too vague, if you will, but let me show you how to play the game. It has several moving parts, and it is kind of a brain burner, but I hope you can get a really good feel for how the game is played in the next few minutes while I show you how that is done. Alright, cool. Well, we'll come back here and I'll tell you more about Bomarzo after you see how the game is played. This is the game of Bomarzo, and what you see in front of you is, of course, a prototype, so keep that in mind as I show you how the game is played. This may or may not accurately reflect what the game will look like when it is finally published. Okay, so you have the basic game board here where you'll be placing some of your action pawns. This is a worker placement game, and also like resource collection, and there's like different cards that you'll have that you get to activate to have different powers and so on and so forth. That's just kind of a real quick overview. The different colored cubes denote different resources. The gray is money, this is food, and that is wine. Wine is a resource that has very specific purposes. It can be used in replace of another resource, and also you can use like 2 wine to replicate a person's action that they take if you have access to it. So wine's a very powerful commodity. When you begin the game, you have this action pawn that starts on the 1, then 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. This is a game that takes 8 turns. If you have a 4-player game, you start with 2 of these pawns over here. If you have a 2 or 3-person game, you have 3. So you'd start with 3 actions, and then be able to earn up to 2 more workers to get to 5. In this case, I'm just going to show you like if this was a 4-player game, and so we remove that 1. Each person gets a player board that you can see in front of you here, and they have these little cubes. As you earn certain things by playing certain cards, you'll slide these up the tracks, and when you do that, you then, there's these little spots on there. Here, I'll show you one of these closer up front, because each person gets one. You can see as you slide up, like here, these are the action pawns. So if you can get your cube here, you get an extra action. These are the cards that you draw. So, you know, that would be a card. That's wine. Here we have money and food. And that's resources that you would just gain at the beginning of your turn. And you start with one of each to begin with. No wine, of course. There's also the fields up here that you can place your actions as... your action pawns, when you take the actions, and then you can collect the resources in that location. You have 3 food, 3 money, and 2 wine. The first person that goes there gets the maximum amount from that spot. However, succeeding people get less. So in the first person that goes to the vineyard, they get 2 wine, and then the second, third, and fourth each get 1. If you're the first person to go to the field, you get 3 food, the second person gets 2 food, and the third and fourth player get 1 food. And if you go to the caves, which is where the money is, or the mines, or what have you, you get 3 coins, and the second person gets 2, and 3 and 4 get 1. And those are those 3 locations there. What you'll be doing more often than not, however, is you're going to be going to one of these shrines, or to one of the gods, the statues to those different gods, and you'll be invoking those different powers. The gods actually require tribute, however. And I'm just going to, pick up one here real quick so you can see how this works. So if, like, here you have, let me just grab one here. Of course, I can't pick it up. So here's Balena, which is like another word for the whale. And you can see that for a tribute of food and 2 coins, you can then place a card. And the whole idea is that these development cards that you have here, you get to place them down in front of you, and then you gain their powers. And so this is one of those things, and you have to place a card that has the symbol of that little man on there. And so, that would be a card that you place down. Others have obviously different powers, like the Genio. For 1 coin, you can collect 2 cards, and so things like that. Now, the interesting thing is when you activate the card, you can actually increase your payment on how to do it. So then, and the reason you do that is because you make it more expensive for another player to use it. So, let's say you wanted to activate Gigante, the giant, and it costs 2 food and a coin to do so, and then you get to place a card that has, one of your development cards that has this house symbol on it. So if you place that down there, and like, let's say you put your worker on there, and you also have to put your tribute on there as well. So, I'm just going to say I have this. So we have 2 food and 1 coin, like so. We'd place those on there. Now, the next person that uses that, if they want to use the same one, they have to up the bid, if you will, to satisfy or to make the god happy. So the next person that goes, let's say, green, like they really want to use Gigante, they have to increase it by 1 resource. So they'd have to. So what's on there right now is they have 2 food. One coin and 2 food, and they're going to have to increase that by 1, the total. So the next person, so they'd have to actually go, like, say 3 food. Well, actually they could go 2 food and 2 coin, because that would be 4, and there's 3 on there, and then they place those on there like so. Now, if somebody actually wanted to go there again, they'd have to actually equal all of that's already on there and then increase it. So you can see how it exponentially becomes more and more expensive to do that. So, for another example, let's say somebody wanted to use Tartaruga. So let's say they went there, and it costs 1 food to use Tartaruga. They could just open up the bid and say, I'm going to pay 2 food to use Tartaruga, the turtle. So if yellow decided they wanted to use that, they would in fact have to use a total of 3. 1 more than the 2 that's already there to go there. And so now, as you can see, there is 5 on there. If somebody wanted to go there, they'd have to go with 6 to go up. So you can actually artificially increase the amount it costs to do it before anybody actually even takes that action. So, when you go ahead and do that, is you then invoke the power of that god immediately at that time, and then use that power to your advantage. So, and that's kind of basically the real basic mechanism as far as the placing of the workers. However, there's a lot more to it than that, mostly because of these guys right over there, the development card. Let me just grab the top development card off the deck here. And the reason why the cards have a front side and a back side. And like the first side, this is like the level 1 version of the card, and that's the upgraded version of the card. So, and everybody is going to get one of these cards that just has the name of the game, Bomarzo, on it. The reason for that is because you keep all of the cards you haven't played yet underneath this card. And the reason for that is so there's never any confusion. Well, one, you get to hide your cards that you have so nobody knows. And two, you're going to be placing cards. Let me just move these out of the way here. You're going to be placing cards off to the side of your little chart here as you build them, because you're going to gain income off of these cards, or you're going to have the powers of those cards as well. And so you don't want to have any mistake or any misunderstanding over, you know, what these cards are in comparison to the ones that are over here. So, as you gain the development cards, you have to be able to place them down, and that's where, remember I said, like the Bellina and Gigante, the certain types of cards allow you to drop them. You'll notice this card has this symbol up here in the top there. That is, I think it's like a craftsman or an artisan, or I believe, I forget the exact name for it. But the important thing is that you have to activate a certain type of card, or the certain idol, if you will, the Bellina, that has this symbol on it that allows you to do that. So once you're able to do so, you then place it down, and then you can then gain different powers or from the particular card. And you'll notice that one of the things this immediately does is that it has the symbol up here, which is this symbol right here. And that is, you'll be able to, immediately placing it, you can go ahead and put it on there. Now you might be saying, well, what's the big deal with these little tracks right here and here and here? Well, for one, the first person to reach this spot and this spot would get a victory point by placing their other another cube here in this. And this is not a game of like hundreds and hundreds of victory points. This is this game is very sparing with the victory points that it hands out. So you have to, so every single one that you possibly get is very important. Secondly, what's really good about the different these cards are they have these symbols on the bottom here. And the more symbols, these symbols you have, the more diverse of these symbols are. The more victory points having those cards in front of you will be worth at the end of the game. Now, you'll notice right here, there's this little thing written down here that'll actually has that same symbol, has a 3 on it, and it has this card. Now, if you flip it over, you'll see, once again, here is this spot with the little 3 on the exact same thing, and it has this little card here. It tells you what the card is, so you don't have to flip it over to know what it is. So you don't have to check and see what the card is going to have when you actually upgrade it. So, when you upgrade this card by activating the god, or the shrine that allows you to do that, when you activate the upgrade, you turn it over after paying the divinity cost, and then you're going to immediately get this reward here that is the 3. So you'll, if you already gotten that 1, then you go up 1, 2, 3, you gain those 3 more. But then here's what it gives you when you're going through the process of your income at the beginning. You then are able to go ahead and grab an extra card, and so that's why you have that there. Now, one other thing about these things, and I apologize for this, you'll notice that there's this little number here that says 1, alright? So you might be saying, well, why is that on there? What's the whole point of that? You have the ability by invoking the god here, and I'll show you the picture here. Under the Drago divinity, as you'll see right here, you'll see that there's a symbol for either a food or a money. You're able to place a card underneath a divinity. It doesn't have to be just the ogre, the orco over there. It can be any of these. And you take a card and you will slide it underneath like so, and it stays there until the end of the game. Now, you might be wondering why that's important. I'm going to tell you why it's important. But one last thing about the things that you do and as far as the actions go. Well, actually, two last things. You are able to spend, if ever, like, because remember when I told you that you can replace wine? It can take the spot of both a food or a money when you spend that to activate a spot. So let's say Orko here, it takes a food to activate. You could use a wine to activate that and to process that. If somebody else comes along and once again they have to pay extra, so they pay a food and they have to pay 2 and they pay another wine, they can activate that location. But then this immediately shuts it down. Once 2 wine have been used on a card, on one of the locations, at that point it is shut down and is no longer able to be used and activated by anybody else. So that's some way you can actually block other people from being able to use certain actions if you have wine. Very powerful ability to have. Now, if after all the things are done, everybody takes an action, if one of these, like here, I'll just place these haphazardly. I'm not doing this specifically. But you get done, and let's say Orko wasn't used. You will then take, at the end of the round, you'll take this and you'll flip it over, and you'll place it in that location. Now you might be saying, well, why is that? Well, if you look here, normally it costs a food to use the spot, right? But if you flip it over, you'll notice he's kind of moss covered and he's been forgotten about. There's no cost to use him and use his ability. So if that happens, it basically makes it more tantalizing, if you will. It doesn't cost you anything to use that. But as soon as it is used, then you flip it back over to the active location, and that is something that could possibly happen. So, once again, you might be wondering why you did the whole process of putting those cards underneath. And now remember, like on this side of the card, there's no little number. It's only on this side that it is there. So, and just like here, all these cards like have different different abilities or different things, different resources and what have you. But the big thing is that when you put those numbers underneath those locations after the last round, what's going to happen? Well, and obviously after each round you clear off each of the cards, so none of the workers and none of the pawns are on there. And there'll be more people on these different tracks, moved up to different locations, and the victory points that people have scored already as the game has been played. But you get to the last turn, and what's going to happen is that you're going to look underneath each one of these cards. And note, these cards were handed out randomly at the very beginning. I didn't show you that, but I did that. I just shuffled them up, and I put one down in each location. You then take the number, the total number, not the number of cards, but the number on the cards, and you total that up, and you determine which location they have. So the one with the most number, like say 11, goes here, and then around like so. And I'm not going to move them around, but you might be wondering, why is that important? Well, you'll notice that there's these victory point modifiers. If you can see that, it's like a 3 and a 2, a 3 and a 2, 3 and a 2, 2, 1, 2, 1, 1, 1, 1. So what happens is that you will look at the victory point right here. And you'll notice that this one is the knowledge, the scrolls. And so you will look at this chart, and whoever is the highest on this chart will get the 3 victory points. Whoever's second gets 2. And then you go with the next one, and 3 and 2, and so on and so forth, like so. And some of these are these charts that are here, like the knowledge. Some of these are just going to be food, how much food you have. Some of these are going to be types of cards. Remember this, we had the card that had this symbol on it. Well, you notice this is that symbol. So whoever has the most of that type of card will get, that are in play in front of them, will get those points as well. And you go through that whole process and notice how these are 1, 1, 1. The person who's leading in those only get 1 victory point. You might be like the top level on like the cards or the top level on one of these charts, but because you didn't put enough of those cards underneath it, they aren't considered to be as important as the rest. And so something you focused on during the game might not be worth a lot of victory points. One of the tricky things about this game that is kind of brain burning, if you will, for me. So, and then obviously you total up all the points from what you scored before, these like ones or whatever, but those have already been charted, if you will. And you finally do the different, remember I talked about the different cards of those different symbols on the bottom of, on the blue side. And remember, if you flip them over, you're not going to see it, but like here's like a little lightning bolt there. And on this one, there's this like it looks like a maple leaf there. And you total up those different symbols, like not the total number of them, but the number of different symbols. And if you have 3 different symbols on your development cards, you get 1 victory point. 4 different symbols, you get 2 victory points. And 5 different symbols, you get 4 victory points. And then, obviously, if there is whoever has the most victory points is then declared the winner. This is a game that has a lot going on and has a lot of tricky little decisions that you have to make, and it is, I say this in a nice way, kind of a difficult game to wrap your head around in a lot of different ways. So very enjoyable, but let me tell you more about it in my conclusion, which I'll do now. Alright, thank you very much for sitting through that. I do apologize if it was a little bit lengthy, but I wanted to give you a really good idea and scope of the different levels and the different layers of the mechanisms that were going on within a game of Bomarzo. Now, there is just tons about this game that I really, really enjoy. Mostly it has to do with the fact that, yes, it is a worker placement game, and I have had lots of worker placement games in the past where I've always felt that, yeah, if I go ahead and put my dude on this field, I'm going to collect, you know, the grain that's being made there. But I really don't feel like I'm stopping somebody else from getting that. It just happened to be, as luck would have it, I went before you and I was able to grab that before you. And it wasn't like so much that like I had this forethought or this idea or this plan to do so. It just, as lucky happenstance, not only did I get 4 grain or 4 food or 4 space rock or whatever, I also had the bonus of like not giving it to you. If you understand what I'm saying, it's like, it's one of those things where I always feel like any screwage that I get out of an action in worker placement is a bonus. It isn't on purpose. Nobody ever like takes a suboptimal move that like doesn't help them as much, in my opinion, that I've experienced anyway, for the purposes of just preventing somebody else from having it. It just seems like a less than optimal play. And so when I played this game, that still kind of exists, and that's still there. If I really, you know, need to get one of my development cards put on the table, you know, and I need to use that action, you know, I'm going to go there, I'm going to do it, and maybe somebody else wants it. But what I have in this game is I have, because of the fact that it increases the cost exponentially, I can plan ahead, and I can say, I know he wants to play a card, I know he wants to get that out there. Well, I'm going to make it get hurt, you know, for him to do it. I'm gonna make them, you know, pay through the nose. I'm gonna add an extra food onto this action to do so, or, you know, I'm gonna add a wine onto it, you know, and then that was the second wine on there, and now I've blocked it from that person, and they can't use it, and so. You know, I liked that extra level. That you know, it wasn't just some road. Put this pawn down here and just give me my stuff, give me my victory points. Thank you very much. It had this extra kind of weird, almost like bidding aspect to it that I really, really enjoyed. And nothing made me more happy when you would do that and you'd put that extra resource down, and then you'd hear somebody silently curse on the other side of the table. It was one of those things that makes the game fun and makes the game, you know, not so much come alive, but just become more of a group experience, if you will. And so I really enjoyed that aspect. Now, the other thing I really like about it is that this game is very miserly with its victory points. It's like it doles them out in little tiny pennies, you know, like and one at a time. It is not something where it's like, oh, I'm gonna, go here and place this here, and I'm gonna do that, and okay, give me another 17 victory points, thank you. It's one of those things where when you get a victory point, she's like, oh, thank you. No, you're so happy to get that one, because this is a game that, like, you win this game by a point or two, maybe. And there is no tiebreaker for this game at the end. So, like, if you tie, you literally tie. Okay, we all kind of won, and that's kind of cool and all, and whatever. But I want the win, if you will, because I rarely win, so I want to have the win. But this game ties in that miserly victory point process with the amazing thing of the development cards are like the key to the game. It has the area on the board, it has the divinities that you're using, but it's how you're going to use your development cards is what really matters. Because one, you can use them by putting them underneath the divinity cards to try to increase the worth, if you will, of what you're going for. Two, nobody knows the number that's on this. You could put something underneath something, and it could be a 1, it could be a 4. By putting a 1 underneath there, you're forcing somebody else maybe to play a higher one because they want to make sure that there's stays good. But you only have 8 rounds. Remember that, and it takes a while to get to the point to have that extra worker, or even have have 4 workers or 5 in a 2 or 3 player game, and so. You don't have a lot of actions. You don't have a lot of, like, tons of options, if you will. So each decision you make is really paramount towards your victory in the end, because of the fact that there is such a shortage on the decisions that you have to make in this game. So each one is then exponentially more and more important because of that. The development cards, like I said, you can slide them underneath. You can leave them face up, so you can you get the extra victory points for the symbol that's on the bottom. And that 4 victory points for having 5 of this, that's huge. That is so huge. That's more than you'll get from one of these gods, these divinities, if you will. And the fact of the matter is that you do have to get them flipped over. You need to get them flipped over, so you have the ability then to have more income, have more resources, have more of moving up the tracks, the scholar tracks and whatever. So you can then score more points at the end of the game. And because of that, because it's just such a difficult decision-making game, I've really enjoyed it. I mentioned earlier that this is kind of a brain burner. It is, and there's nothing worse than you start setting down a path, and then it turns out at the end of the game, even though you're kicking butt in those selections, it only gains you a couple of victory points because of the fact that, like, it's just not high up on the chain of the respected divinities. And so you have to really balance everything at the same time, and you really can't, because of the fact that everybody else at the table is trying to do the same thing. And because of that, I mean, there is, once again, like, the screwage going on between players, and there's actual real competitiveness going on, and not so much just taking care of your own little garden and doing your own little thing and seeing who has the best garden at the end of the game. Those games are all well and good. I enjoy those a great deal, but I do like a game with some complexity, some thinkiness to it, and definitely some adversity. And Bomarzo does all 3 of those things. So if that's the kind of game you're looking for, I strongly suggest that you take a look at this one, and look for adding it to your game board shelf, your board game shelf in the near future. So if you have any questions about Bomarzo, please ask away. I'll try to answer those to the best of my ability. As always, I really appreciate you taking the time to watch this video, and until next time, I am the Undead Viking, telling you to have yourself one heck of an awesome day. Alright, bye-bye.